Hare Krishna. I hope I am audible. So, continuing with our chapter of Krishna book, prayers offered by Lord Brahma to Lord Krishna. My dear Lord, so this one. If one therefore thinks that the super soul is something different from your personality and thus searches out the super soul or the supreme Brahman somewhere else, in the forest or in the caves of the Himalayas, his condition is very lamentable. Your teachings in the Bhagavad Gita are that one should give up all other processes of self realization and simply surrender unto you. For that is complete, because you are the supreme in every respect. Those who are searching after the Brahman effulgence are also searching after you, and those who are searching after super soul realization are also searching after you. You state in the Bhagavad Gita that you yourself, by your partial representation as the super soul, have entered into this material cosmic manifestation. You are present in everyone's heart, and there is no need to search out the supersoul anywhere else. If someone does so, he is simply in ignorance. One who is transcendental to such a position understands that you are unlimited. You are both within and without. Therefore, your presence is everywhere. Instead of searching for the supersoul anywhere else, a devotee only concentrates his mind on you within. Actually, one who is liberated from the material concept of life can search for you, others cannot. The example of thinking the rope to be a snake is applicable only to those who are still in ignorance of you. Actually, when one mistakes a rope for a snake, the existence of snake is only within the mind. The existence of Maya, similarly, is only within the mind. Maya is nothing but ignorance of your personality. When one forgets your personality, that is the conditioned state of Maya. Therefore, one who is fixed upon you, both internally and externally, is not illusion. One who has attained a little result of devotional service can understand your glories. Even one striving for Brahman realization or Paramatma realization cannot understand these features of your personality unless you bestow upon him the result of at least a slight bit of devotional service. One may be the spiritual master of many impersonalists, or he may go to the forest or to a mountain cave and meditate as a hermit for many years, but he cannot understand your glories without being favored by a slight degree of devotional service. Brahman realization or Paramatma realization are also not possible even after one searches for many years unless one is touched by the wonderful effect of devotional service. Therefore, my dear Lord, I pray that I may be so fortunate that in this life or in another life, wherever I may take my birth, I may be counted as one of your devotees. Wherever I may be, I pray that I may be engaged in your devotional service. I do not even care for what form of life I get in the future, because I can see that even in the form of cows and calves or cowherd boys, the devotees are so fortunate to be always engaged in your transcendental loving service and association. Therefore, I wish to be one of them instead of such an exalted person as I am now. For I am full of ignorance. The gopis and cows of Vrindavan are so fortunate that they have been able to supply their breast milk to you. Persons who are engaged in performing great sacrifices and offering many valuable goods in sacrifice cannot attain the perfection of understanding you. But simply by devotional service, these innocent village women and cows are all able to satisfy you with their milk. You have drunk their milk to satisfaction, yet you are never satisfied as much by those engaged in performing sacrifices. I am simply surprised, therefore, with the fortunate position of Maharaj Nanda, Mother Yashoda, and the cowherd men and gopis, because you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, are existing here as their most intimate, lovable object. My dear Lord, no one can actually appreciate the good fortune of these residents of Vrindavan. We are all demigods controlling deities of the various senses of the living entities, and we are proud of enjoying such privileges. But actually, there is no comparison between our position and the position of these fortunate residents of Vrindavan, because they are actually relishing your presence and enjoying your association by dint of their sensory activities. We may be proud of being controllers of the senses, but here the residents of Vrindavan are so transcendental that they are not under our control. Actually, they are enjoying their senses through service to you. I shall therefore consider myself fortunate to be given a chance to take birth in this land of Vrindavan in any of my future lives. My dear Lord, I am therefore not interested in either material opulences or liberation. I am most humbly praying at your lotus feet for you to please give me any sort of birth within this Vrindavan forest, so that I may be able to be favored by the dust of the feet of some of the devotees of Vrindavan. If I am given the chance to grow as a humble blade of grass in this land, that would be a glorious birth for me. But if I am not so fortunate to take birth within the forest of Vrindavan, I beg to be allowed to take birth outside the immediate area of Vrindavan so that when the devotees go out, they will walk over me. Even that would be a great fortune for me. I am just aspiring for a birth in which I will be smeared by the dust of the devotees' feet. Because I can see that everyone here is simply full of Krishna consciousness. No one here knows anything but the lotus feet of Krishna or Mukunda, for, with, for which the Vedas themselves are searching. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the purpose of Vedic knowledge is to find Krishna. And it is stated in the Brahma Samhita that it is very difficult to find Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by systematic reading of the Vedic literature. But he is very easily available through the mercy of a pure devotee. The pure devotees of Vrindavan are fortunate because they can see Mukunda, Lord Krishna, all the time. This word Mukunda can be understood in two ways. Muk means liberation. It is Mukti. Muk. Lord Krishna can give liberation and therefore transcendental bliss. The word also refers to his smiling face, which is just like the Kunda flower. Mukha means face. Kunda, Kunda flower is very beautiful and it appears to be smiling. Thus, the comparison is made. The difference between the pure devotees of Vrindavan and devotees in other places is that the residents of Vrindavan have no other desire but to be associated with Krishna. Krishna, being very kind to his devotees, fulfills their desire because they always want Krishna's association. The Lord is always prepared to give it to them. The devotees of Vrindavan are also spontaneous lovers. They are not required they are not required to strictly follow regulative principles because they are already naturally developed in transcendental love for Krishna. Regulative principles are required for persons who have not achieved such a position of spontaneous love. Brahma is also devotee of the Lord, but he is an ordinary devotee subject to following regulative principles. He prays to Krishna to give him the chance to take birth in Vrindavan so that he might be elevated to the platform of spontaneous love. Lord Brahma continued, My Lord, sometimes I am puzzled as to how your Lordship will be able to repay in gratitude the devotional service of these residents of Vrindavan. Although I know that you are the supreme source of all benediction, I am puzzled to know how you will be able to repay all the service that you are receiving from these residents of Vrindavan. I think of how you are so kind, so magnanimous, that even Putana, who came to cheat you by dressing herself as a very affectionate mother, was awarded liberation and the actual post of a mother. And other demons belonging to the same family, such as Aghasur and Bakasur, were also favored with liberation and achieved you. Under the circumstances, I am puzzled. These residents of Vrindavan have given you everything, their bodies, their minds, their love, their homes, their possessions. Everything is being utilized for your purpose. So, how will you be able to repay your debt to them? You have already given yourself to Putna. I surmise that you shall ever remain a debtor to the residents of Vrindavan, being unable to repay their loving service. My lord, I can understand that the super excellent quality of the service rendered by the residents of Vrindavan is due to their spontaneously engaged in all natural instincts in your loving service. It is said that attachment for material objects and home is due to illusion, which makes a living entity conditioned in the material world. But this is only the case for persons who are not Krishna conscious. In the case of the residents of Vrindavan, such obstructions as attachment to earth and home are non existent. Because their attachment has been directed unto you, and their homes have been converted into temples by your constant presence there, and because they have forgotten everything for your sake, there is no impediment. For a Krishna conscious person, there is no such thing as impediments due to attachment for earth and home, nor there is illusion, nor is there illusion. I can also understand that your appearance as a small cowherd boy, a child of the cowherd men, is not at all a material activity. You are so much obliged by their affection that you are here to inspire them with more loving service by your transcendental pleasure. In Vrindavan, there is no distinction between material and spiritual because everything is dedicated to your loving service. My dear Lord, your Vrindavan pastimes are simply to inspire your devotees. If someone takes your Vrindavan pastimes to be material, he will be misled. My dear Lord Krishna, those who deride you, claiming that you have a material body like an ordinary man, are described in the Bhagavad Gita as demoniac and less intelligent. You are always transcendental. The non devotees are cheated because they consider you to be a material creation. Actually, you have assumed this body, which exactly resembles that of an ordinary cowherd boy, simply to increase the devotional and transcendental bliss of your devotees. My dear Lord, I have nothing to say about people who advertise that they have already realized God, or that by their realization they have themselves become God. But as far as I am concerned, I admit frankly that for me it is not possible to realize you by my body, mind, or speech. What can I say about you? Or how can I realize you by my senses? I cannot even think of you perfectly with my mind, which is the master of the senses. Your qualities, your activities, and your body cannot be conceived of by any person within this material world. Only by your mercy can one understand to some extent what you are. My dear Lord, you are the supreme Lord of all creation. Although I sometimes falsely think that I am the master of this universe, I may be the master of this universe, but there are innumerable universes, and there are also innumerable Brahmas who preside over these universes. But actually, you are the master of them all. As the super soul in everyone's heart, you know everything. Please, therefore, accept me as your surrendered servant. I hope that you will excuse me for committing the great offense of disturbing you in your pastimes with your friends and calves. Now, if you will kindly allow me, I will immediately leave so you can enjoy your friends and calves without my presence. My dear Lord Krishna, your very name suggests that you are all attractive. The attraction of the sun and moon are all due to you. By the attraction of the sun, you are beautifying the very existence of the Yadu dynasty. With the attraction of the moon, you are enhancing the potency of the land, the demigods, the Brahmanas, the cows, and the oceans. Because of your supreme attraction, demons like Kamsa and others are annihilated. Therefore, it is my deliberate conclusion that you are. Therefore, it is my deliberate conclusion that you are the only worshipable deity within the creation. Accept my humble obeisances until the annihilation of this material world. As long as there is sunshine within this material world, kindly accept my humble obeisances. In this way, Brahma, the master of the universe, after offering humble and respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and circumambulating him 3 times, was ready to return to his abode, also known as Brahmalok. By his gesture, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gave him permission to return. As soon as Brahma left, Lord Sri Krishna immediately returned to the bank of the Yamuna and rejoined his calves and cowherd boyfriends, who were situated just as they had been on the very day they had vanished. Krishna had left his friends on the bank of the Yamuna while they were engaged in lunch, and although he returned exactly 1 year later, the cowherd boys thought that he had returned within a second. That is the way Krishna's different energies act. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna himself is residing in everyone's heart, and he causes both remembrance and forgetfulness. All living entities are controlled by the supreme energy of the Lord, and sometimes they remember and sometimes they forget their constitutional position. His friends, being controlled in such a way, could not understand that for 1 whole year they were absent from the Yamuna's bank and were under the spell of Brahma's illusion. When Krishna's when Krishna appeared before the boys, they thought Krishna has returned within a minute. They began to laugh, thinking that Krishna was not willing to leave their lunchtime company. They were very jubilant and invited him. Dear friend Krishna, you have come back so quickly. All right, we have not as yet begun our lunch, not even taken one morsel of food. Again. Dear friend Krishna, you have come back so quickly. All right, we have not yet begun our lunch, not even taken one morsel of food. Please come and join us. Let us eat together. Krishna smiled and accepted their invitation, and he began to enjoy the lunchtime company of his friends. While eating, Krishna was thinking, these boys believe that I have come back within a second, but they do not know that for the last year I have been involved with the mystic activities of Lord Brahma. After finishing their lunch, Krishna, as his friends and cows, began to return to their Vrajabhumi homes. While passing, they enjoyed seeing the dead carcass of Aghasur in the shape of the gigantic serpent. When Krishna returned home to Vrajabhumi, he was seen by all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. He was wearing a peacock feather in his helmet, which was also decorated with forest flowers. Krishna was also garlanded with flowers and painted with different colored minerals collected from the caves of Govardhan Hill. Govardhan Hill is very famous for supplying natural red oxides, and Krishna and his friends painted their bodies with them. Each of them had a bugle made of buffalo horn and a stick and a flute. and each called his respective calves by their particular names. The cowherd boys were so proud of Krishna's wonderful activities that while entering the village, they all sang his glories. All the gopis in Vrindavan saw beautiful Krishna entering the village. The boys composed nice songs describing how they were saved from being swallowed by the great serpent, and how the serpent was killed. Some described Krishna as the son of Yashoda, and others as the son of Nanda Maharaj. He is so wonderful that he saved us from the clutches of the great serpent and killed him, they said. But little did they know that 1 year had passed since the killing of Aghasur. In this regard, Maharaj Parikshit asked Shukdev Goswami how the inhabitants of Vrindavan suddenly developed so much love for Krishna, although he was not a member of any of their families. Maharaj Parikshit inquired. During the absence of the original cowherd boys, when Krishna expanded himself, why is that the boys' parents became more loving toward him than towards their own sons? Also, why did the cows become so loving towards the calves more than toward their own calves? Shukdev Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that every living entity is actually most attached to his own self. Outward paraphernalia such as home, family, friends, country, society, wealth, opulence, and reputation are all only secondary in pleasing the living entity. They please only because they bring pleasure to the self. For this reason, one is self-centered and is attached to this body and self more than he is to his relatives like wife, children, and friends. If there is some immediate danger to one's own person, he first of all takes care of himself, then others. That is natural. That means he loves his own self more than anything else. The next important object of affection after his own self is this material body. A person who has no information of the spirit soul is very much attached to his material body, so much so that even in the old age he wants to preserve the body in so many artificial ways, thinking that his old and broken body can be saved. Everyone is working hard day and night just to give pleasure to his own self, e- under either the bodily or spiritual concept of life. We are attached to material possessions because they give pleasure to the senses or to the body. The attachment to the body is there only because the I, the spirit soul, is within the body. Similarly, when one is further advanced, he knows that the spirit soul is pleasing because it is part and parcel of Krishna. Ultimately, it is Krishna who is pleasing and all attractive. He is the she is the super soul of everything. And in order to give us this information, Krishna descends and tells us that the all attractive center is He Himself. Without being an expansion of Krishna, nothing can be attractive. Whatever is attractive within the cosmic manifestation is due to Krishna. Krishna is therefore the reservoir of all pleasure. The active principle of everything is Krishna, and everything is Krishna, and highly elevated transcendentalists see everything in connection with Him. In the active principle of everything is Krishna, and highly elevated transcendentalists see everything in connection with Him. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated that a Mahabhagavat or highly advanced devotee sees Krishna as the active principle in all moving and non-moving living entities. Therefore, he sees everything within his cosmic manifestation in relation to Krishna. For the fortunate persons who has taken shelter of Krishna as everything, liberation is already there. He is no longer in the material world. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Whoever is engaged in the devotional service of Krishna is already on the Brahma Bhuta or spiritual platform. The very name Krishna suggests deity and liberation. Anyone who takes shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna enters the boat for crossing over the oceans of nescience. For him, this vast expanse of the material manifestation becomes as insignificant as the water in a calf's hoofprint. Krishna is the shelter of all great souls, and he is also the shelter of the material worlds. For one who is on the platform of Krishna consciousness, Vaikuntha or the spiritual world is not far away. He does not live within the material world where there is danger at every step. In this way, Krishna consciousness was fully explained to Maharaj Parikshit by Shukdev Goswami as he recited to the king the statements and prayers of Lord Brahma. These descriptions of Lord Krishna's pastimes with his cowherd boys, his eating with them on the bank of Yamuna, and Lord Brahma's prayers unto him are all transcendental subject matters. Anyone who hears or recites or chants them surely gets all his spiritual desires fulfilled. Thus, Krishna's childhood pastimes, his sporting with Balram and the cowherd boys in Vrindavan were described. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 14th chapter of Krishna, prayers offered by Lord Brahma to Lord Krishna. Now we end at chapter 14. Tomorrow we will be discussing chapter 15. The chapter is named The Killing of Dhenukasura. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Radhe Shyam ki Jai.